Worked hard, she worked out even harder. That led her to a big idea. She came up with a line of leggings scientifically engineered to empower female athletes. What does that mean?
Yeast infections, peleats, cellulite. We have technology to fight these things. Let's be honest, most women's leggings suck. Why? Because they trap moisture and bacteria, and they're not equipped to properly handle curves. So why must millions of women put up with crappy leggings? We at OYA Femtech Apparel are on a mission to say goodbye to problematic leggings.
We make patent-pending sportswear that fights feminine health issues. We are building a category, which is really cool. We're in the process of closing our pre-seed round, which is going to be oversubscribed. So that's breaking an international record. I think I'll be like the 160th Black woman to ever raise over $1 million in venture capital.
Whoa. Okay, so we're not
Crazy,
only,
right?
I'm talking to history right now, living history.
Oh no.
It's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, I was talking to this do you follow streetwear like Fear of God or anything like that?
I do, yes.
Yeah, okay. So I was talking to the president of Fear of God and another guy named Davion, who is Shock Tracker. So they've raised like over 35 million, and both Black men, and was asking them like, how do they deal with that pressure? Like, because with that pressure also sometimes comes ego, right? And like you see that a lot, especially in the Black community, because like when you come up, you really want to like
flex on them.
You want to flex on them. You want to flex. Let them know.
We both said on them. We want to do something on them.
We want to do something on them, but I was asking like, how do they deal with that pressure? And they were like, do we feel chosen? And it's not necessarily chosen. It's like you feel a responsibility, right?
It's
because you're going into. Yeah, it's no, to some extent, I recognize that I'm of okay intelligence, but more than that, I think there's just a lot of oppressive systems at work to keep people like me from in rooms, right? And like, I'm very aware that where I am is because there's been communities of people for decades that have like actively worked to get me where I am. So like, even in like when I was younger, like I went to like Jewish school for a while, and then high school, I went to high school on a scholarship. Like, who was going to bat for me in those rooms to make sure that I could pay that? Because I couldn't pay to go to like a really nice private school. So it's just, to me, Black women are the biggest hustlers I've ever met, right? No one's protecting us. And so when I look at where I am, I don't think it's like a matter of me grinding harder, me being more intelligent, me or anything. And so a big part of what I want to do is build a ladder to like create more opportunities and space for women and people of color, because no one's going to protect us if we don't protect ourselves.
Right. And I'll gladly climb up that ladder. Gladly.
Hey boo, let's go. 100%. Come join Team OYA. It's a vibe.
Protect Black women, right? Like, and yeah. I understand the sentiment, but to me, it's always been like, are you like, am I really protected? Because I exist in my body and I have to navigate this space. Like, you know what I mean? Unless like some militant like Nation of Islam brother is gonna be like following me around, like, then maybe that's like the protection. But I always felt like that saying was more so like poetic phrase than it really is. It's a poetic phrase on Instagram. Like, I get the sentiment, but I feel you. I understand, because it is just us existing.
You might as well pick up a sword, sis. Like, like it is what it is. Like, you gonna be beat up in a corner? No. You're gonna fight back. Sure.
Carry that pocket knife. No, I'm joking.
My co-founder's mom just gave me a pocket knife this morning. She's like, you never know what's gonna happen. I was like, I appreciate this. Thank you.
That's so funny. Oh my God. I mean, not funny. It's serious, but we can laugh a little bit. We have to find humor, a little bit of, comedic relief. So, okay, so Team Oya, you said it is gynecologist approved femtech apparel. Let's talk about I mean, I'm sure it's probably personal, but where did you get the inspiration for this brand? Because I've seen a lot of people, they'll do the activewear brand, they'll get the Gildan's equivalent of activewear and put their little logo on it. But, you said, hey, now we're going to get this gynecologist tested.
Yeah, so I got a full ride to business school to build a business, and I knew I wanted it to be in fashion. So going to UCLA made a lot of sense, right? Because LA is like a fashion capital with a lot of factories. And I had been in fashion previously. Like I styled people while I was a consultant, and I was at a small streetwear startup. And the streetwear startup is what got me into Anderson. I've been training since I was 14. I was a state ranking rugby player, and I was at the level where I played with Olympians. And even after rugby, yeah, I lived in leggings. So I always would get yeast infections, just it wouldn't stop. And come to UCLA, and the OBGYN is like, stop wearing leggings. And I was like, what? Those things can't be related. So
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? So part of our core program was that we had to do 200 hours of research. So we start talking to everyone who touches the vagina. So vagina OBGYNs, midwives, doulas, male and females, moms. And yeah, most athleisure is made with spandex blends, and spandex is notorious for being non-breathable and non-leak absorbent. So it's kind of like a garbage bag. And like, what happens when you leave a garbage bag in your kitchen and when it's hot? Not great things. But for women, it's worse, because not only are we hot, but we also leak urine, menstrual fluids, and or sweat, depending upon the stage of our bodies. And so once we figured that out, the question became, how do we build something? How do we work with doctors to build the first athleisure brand that's really focused on a woman's health?
Develop like a sense of comfortability to be able to, to say, hey, I'm going to create a gynecologist tested femtech apparel brand, which, it might seem like, oh, you're a woman. So of course, why wouldn't you be comfortable saying the word vagina? But I'm sure, what can you sort of like give insight into that becoming journey?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question, because feminine health is not just for women who are coming into their own, like, high schoolers or teenagers, but even for mature women. It's something that is attached to a lot of shame and stigma and lack of education, because we're taught that vaginas are bad or like unhealthy or lesser than, or that we're almost a subsidiary gender, right? And so we are supposed to not really talk about it, even though 75% of women will have these issues. And so when I was younger, I had so much shame and stigma. I was like, no one will ever love me. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I bad? Has God chosen to forsake me? All sorts of things. Fast forwarding into the business, though, as we started to gain traction, I got explicit feedback that I needed to tell my story in order for other women to feel comfortable. Because if I couldn't share my story, or if I couldn't talk about the problem, then how could anyone else identify? And so
it's like, we have these brands, like, my friend of a friend had this experience. That's why we're creating it. And like, are you sure you're not the friend?
Women to do, which is not something I would have done when I was younger, is, bring in your male counterparts. Like, I'm talking about like your boyfriend, your husband, your dad. You would be surprised. Like, Oya's second highest paying customer is a millennial male. Oya's fourth paying highest customer is a Gen Z male.
Oh, wow. Look at Gen Z.
Yeah. And when we run ads, males are clicking them, because just as you're learning about your vagina, so are males. And there's a lot of with Roe v. Wade, people who are men who are really hating out here, but there's a lot of men who also want you to succeed. So if something's going on, invite him into the journey, like, because he's trying to educate himself, because we can see that from OYA.
Do you hope that your work, not even exclusive to your brand, but just your work will stand for?
That designing for women begins with designing for us first and not shrinking it and pink it. Most female products, for example, even if you take shoes, it wasn't even until Allison Felix's shoes, like she was making the first shoes that were actually designed for a woman's foot.
And I was saying, I actually just went to her last 100-meter race. So I saw they had the Sage booth, and I live near Culver City. So I'm like constantly like peeking in the, her storefront. So
yeah, and her story was born out of a lot of frustration, right? With people who were putting limits and boundaries on her. And what I love is she designed for women first, right? She knew what she needed to be the best that she could be. And she wanted to bring that design approach to other females who wanted to be the best that they can be. And so I hope that people take away two things. One, you should design with the vagina first approach for anything that you are selling to women, because we're not men. The second piece that I would put is that women are deserving of healing. So there's a lot of industries that profit off of our pain, off of our insecurities, our lack of education. Bump that. We deserve places where we get to feel safe and heal and beautiful.
And growing up, you were going to Jewish high school. Growing up, you were going to Jewish high school. You were getting scholarships for, to go to private high school. So I'm assuming that your parents were really invested in your success.
Yeah. So my mother, pretty much many of her siblings died. My mother also passed.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and definitely. And we were really impacted by the crack epidemic. So, like pretty much all her brothers and sisters were wrapped up in it in some way, shape, or form. Because, lack of education and poverty, right? And that created very dangerous upbringing, right? And almost having to be in survival mode constantly. And so my parents were both very smart people, but who faced a lot of structural challenges. Like they weren't safe either. And I would say that impacted their mental health. And they counteracted that in me. Like, I'm not going to say my early life was a walk in the park in any way, shape, or form, but they counteracted that by making sure that I got the best education. They were hell bent on me making it out, because not everybody makes it out of where I'm from, Yeah, and check out OYA. Our third collection is out now. We'll be dropping our fall collection sometime between September and October. Really excited. And yay, go feminine health. Go feminine health.
Go feminine health. Go femininity. Yay.